So
You're live.
I'm live.
Yeah.
So they get to watch me troubleshoot last minute
Yeah.
before we bring on our special guest.
That might be helpful for people to see you troubleshoot. That would be interesting. Like a mechanic showing you actually how he fixes your car.
See, we've done that a couple times.
Think it will work?
Oh no, I get like messages from all over the place. I watched your video and my machine's now in 6 different parts. How do I fix it?
Oh,
No, it's not bad. I don't mind that at
It's
all.
just saying you're inviting problems.
All right. Oh, I didn't set up my phone to see comments, Eddie. We are just like on fire today.
Well,
It's a-
Rhonda says hello.
It's a
Dean
good.
and John also say hello.
It's a good thing that we. Oh, you're from like the Boston area, right, Michael?
Originally New York, but I live in the.
Oh, okay.
Like my accent's New York.
Okay, because John was in over the weekend and he was giving me all sorts of good like Boston. Okay, no, New York stories or Boston. I don't know. It would you would have enjoyed the stories.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's get to, okay. Shop news. Come take a seat, Michael. Or do you want like a formal introduction?
No.
We gotta play like music. Do we have music, Eddie?
Whoa.
So anyway, welcome to an episode of whatever we're calling this now. Hold on a second. I am so disorganized. See, I told Eddie to get the machine going, and he did. I mean, I guess.
I
There
told
we
you,
go,
Eddie
live.
can do no wrong.
Yes. So, anyway, we have a special guest today, Michael. He is a sales rep,
This,
That one.
and you're doing Moda now, right?
Moda and Andover.
Andover. Okay. Which is good because I decided that we're going to use Moda fabric today for our projects in honor of my.
All right. Well, that's
I
good.
mean,
Thank you.
yeah.
That's very
so,
thoughtful.
so you can desecrate Moda fabric in
Okay.
our sewing adventures. So he's our sales rep, and he called. He's like, I got some stuff to show you. I'm like, great, come on up. We'll make you internet famous, and then we'll look at fabric. So we'll be looking at new Moda lines here when we're done here. Shop news, not a whole lot of shop news. No fabric came in yet this week. I did get the invoice for, I got the bill for the Free Spirit Tula Pink. What's that one called, Eddie, with the animals? Anyway, it's probably going to be here today or tomorrow. It's got like the animals and stuff. It's the new one. So that'll be, and I think that's all we've got coming up. I don't have it, so I can't show it to you. The other thing is check our calendar. We did put there is an intro to paper piecing on the calendar. I believe I'll be teaching that, so we get to have some fun together. That's going to be Thursday, May 11th, I think, and then we're going to rerun it on May 13th. What the plan for that is, we're going to do some learn paper piecing, and then we're going to put them into nice little greeting cards, so you can like give it to somebody, and then they can say, "Oh, how precious! You gave me a." I mean,
Makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
not my
That's a good
thing.
idea.
Do you have this problem when somebody gives me a card? What do you do with it?
Oh, I have shoeboxes with cards because I feel bad if they're in a landfill or they're being recycled after
Yeah.
somebody said, "I'm so sorry you went through this," or "I really appreciate your business." and-
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. It's like you have piles of it. Like, what are you going to do with it? Because somebody took the time to send it to you. You can't just throw it out.
I think we all need to get together and have a ceremony where we burn these things as a community and send them
And
back up into
and
the
then should we
world.
reset?
Yeah,
Yeah, that,
yeah.
okay.
encourage each other to
Do
get rid of
you
them.
get rid of the cards?
Yeah.
Yeah, but then that brings us to the question: should we be sending the cards if we're just going to get rid of them?
Oh.
Because it's not like I don't want to still get cards. It's just I have that moral quandary of what do I do after I get the card.
Well, we do have recycling now, which is nice because it's not going to sit in a
Oh, this-
landfill. It'll be
true.
made into another card.
Yes. Oh, I got to turn off my sound because nobody wants to hear us. Echo. Okay. So anyway, that was a nice little segue. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be making these very beautiful paper pieced cards, and then nobody will be able to throw them out. They're like, oh, you made this special for me, and it's all crafty with fabric. You know, it's not the same as just throwing out a Hallmark card. That anyway. So that's the plan for the paper piecing. So if you're interested in that, sign up. It's sign up now. It's online. That's all we've got for class right now. We'll be putting some more on for May, probably before the week's out. We've got some other stuff we're thinking about doing, but that's all I've got on the calendar for now. And with no fabric, I guess that lets us get right into it.
Okay.
So what we're going to do today is I've got stories. Maybe we'll get to stories. I don't know. We'll see if we can keep Michael entertained. like I said, we've got these charm packs from Moda, which you can buy these on our website for $11.95. Or you can come into the store and pick them up. They're really cute. They've got all these like little babies and stuff on them. It's like a little kid charm pack, and we've got a couple coordinates to go with it. So it's a fantastic little charm pack. But I was thinking today, how many have you ever seen a 1600 quilt?
No.
No, because
I may have, but not.
Okay.
That's what I was looking at.
because when I asked you, I was like, hey, when was the last time you sew? When was the last time you sewn?
Actually, behind the sewing machine sewing, it's got to go back to when I was probably in my 30s, so 30 years ago.
Holy, you're that old?
I'm 62.
You're looking
yeah.
good for 62.
Well, thank you. It's the sports jacket.
Yeah. That's a good thing. It's all it takes is a sports jacket?
That's all it takes.
Okay, when I get that.
You look good without one.
Oh, well.
Because you're a handsome kid.
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
That's
shout out to my barber.
Yeah?
Yep. Keen Johnny done at Keen Barber. Fantastic job. Anyway.
Oh, he trimmed it all up, did? Yeah.
I go down there a couple times. Yeah. Well, you know how it is. Fine. I see. As I turn into an older man, more distinguished, I have learned that you can't just go anywhere for your haircut, especially if you want the beard done as well. You've got to find somebody.
You do. And when you're losing your hair, you would think, oh, it doesn't matter who you go to.
Yeah.
It matters even more who you go to. Because they got to cut it just right so it looks like you still have something on your head.
Or you could just rock it, take it all off.
You could do that. I don't think it's a good look for me, though.
I don't know. Grow that beard. You can make that work. You're gonna have to change the glasses though.
Yeah.
Get like those.
Round frames?
No, get like the rectangle, like the.
Oh, the
really,
rectangle.
Yeah, go for that total like.
Yeah.
Like John Wick mafioso look. Anyway, so we were gonna do some sewing, and so I had to figure out what we were gonna sew.
Okay.
And the 1600 quilt, for those who don't know, we're not going to do a 1600 quilt, but this is what's inspired this. I have no idea how this is going to turn out. Mm-hmm. But a 1600 quilt, they take a jelly roll, and you sew them end to end to end to end.
Okay.
And then you fold it in half and sew a seam. Fold it in half and sew a seam. You keep doing it, and then eventually you have a quilt.
Yeah.
It's just a nice strip quilt. It's a quick, easy way to make a quilt. Really fun way to use a jelly roll. Mm-hmm. And then I thought to myself, I don't have a lot of well, I've got some jelly rolls, but I didn't want to use them for that. Because Brenda's working on a sample right now that's awesome with jelly rolls, so we wanted to save them for that. But we have these charm packs, so I was like, maybe we're going to use the same concept that you use for a 1600 quilt with a charm pack.
I see, end to end to end.
We're going to sew them all together in a giant strip,
Yeah.
and then you fold it and sew until it looks like a quilt. I don't know if it's going to look like a blanket when we're done or not. I have no idea if the dimensions come out right. But we have a cutter, so we can make it look right. And I don't know if charm packs are enough. If one is enough, because if you do the math, we should use a layer cake, because a layer cake has the same surface area. I did the math.
Okay.
The same surface area as a jelly roll.
That's right.
If you figure out the square inches, a layer cake and a jelly roll are the same. This is 1/4 the size of a layer cake, so it means it's going to be 1/4 the size of a 1600 quilt, which may make them a little small. Mm-hmm. But if we make two, we can sew it together and make one if it comes out awful.
Yeah, be an experiment.
Yes, so you all get to join us on this journey. All right.
Okay.
Have you watched us do this before? See, the new format now is as we sew, we kind of walk through our sewing, but we also tell a story.
Okay.
And today, do you know what we're talking about today, Eddie?
No.
You're going to appreciate this. I decided we're going to go very literary today.
Uh-huh.
Last week we did Cleopatra, and it was nice having John in the audience because he knew his stuff. Today we're going to do Moby Dick. Do you know the story of Moby Dick? Okay, so I guess we'll get started. You should be good to go.
Okay.
Do you need a rundown on the basics?
Yes.
All right. Quick. So we're running today just as you're watching, we've got the single featherweight going. We're also decided to stick with the vintage theme and put Michael on a Singer 401A. Now, one thing we did discover in setting this up, shout out to anybody on a 401A, you will need a high shank if you are going to use a 401A. It is not your standard low shank on a sewing machine. So we do have a high shank, 1/4 inch foot, he's good to go. Things to remember. These are things I remember when I was teaching my children to sew, and I figure I'm going to remind you because, you said it's been 30 years.
Very long time, yeah.
Make sure you put the foot down before you start sewing.
Okay.
It's over here.
Okay.
Back there.
Yeah,
Yep.
back there.
Yep.
Okay.
Because otherwise it'll sew and make a mess, especially on these old machines.
Okay.
So basically all we're going to do is... there's two of everything. Nice. right sides together.
This is a right side, and this is a right side.
Yeah, and then we just
They come together.
come together, and we just throw it under the foot.
Throw it under the foot.
Oh no! Of course, mine is now misbehaving. And the way you've got a 1/4 inch foot, so what you should be able to do is line it up with the edge of the foot there. So you're just going to ride your fabric
Oh,
right along the side
Right
there.
along that
Yep.
bar right there.
Yep.
Okay.
So all you got to do, hopefully you can reach your pedal. We were,
Yeah.
this is set up for.
I think so.
You get to be our first guest.
Well, good.
You're like this is the second time you've done this with us, though, right?
I didn't do any sewing the first time.
Yeah, no, but you showed up.
I did show
So
up.
that
yeah.
so that makes you
They say that's half the job.
that makes
showing
that that makes you the most popular guest.
up. Okay. Like most times hosting Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I think we give out a jacket if you make it 5 times. So all you do is once you get that lined up,
Yeah.
is you just slowly go down on the pedal, and then go right to the end.
See what I did? I didn't do it slow enough, and it
Oh.
puckered.
And you also went off the edge.
Oh,
So
I
you
see
want,
what happened.
yeah, so you want to keep that right tight
Keep it
against.
on.
Keep it right
Okay.
tight against there.
All right.
Oh wait, did we break our thread? And of course, we broke a thread too. We may not get into our story today. This was like I said, Eddie was supposed to set this up, and he's like, "Yeah, I got it." And I was like, "Is it all set up, Eddie?" And he's like, "Yep." And it's not. And guess what he was doing when
No
I?
trashing Eddie's stories. Only
I'm
Moby
not.
Dick
I'm not
stories.
trashing him, because I want to know what his chess rating is, because he plays an awful lot of chess when he's supposed to be getting other stuff done.
It's been going down.
He says it's been going down. That's not good, Eddie.
All right, there we go.
Wow, you're pretty good at that.
Oh,
I
you
don't
do it,
know if
do-
I could do that.
Do it enough. All right, try that again.
Okay, I'm gonna be a little more thoughtful with it this time.
Oh no, just zip through it. This is supposed to be fun, you know.
Okay.
See, look at that. It's your first team in 30 years. Looks like you got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we can go ahead and leave. Yep.
Leave it.
What we're gonna do is I'm gonna teach you the trick of chain stitching. So all you do now is get another set,
Another set. I'm gonna pick this one.
because what we're gonna do is we're gonna sew all these together in pairs, and then sew the pairs together.
I'm gonna pick this one. I'm gonna put my right sides
Right sides together, and then just throw it on the foot and keep going. So you don't have to keep cutting your thread, and then you also have to worry about unthreading and all that stuff.
And marry it right up to the end here.
Yep. Yeah. Right up to the end's fine.
Right up to the end.
And make sure you're coming off that 1/4 inch.
Okay.
Okay. Any comments yet? No one throws out John's. Yeah, because John does make good cards. So anyway, we were going to talk about Moby. What do you know about Moby Dick?
I just know that the guy got obsessive with this whale. and
Yes,
it
that's the
destroyed
story.
him.
Yes. We're going to talk more about Melville than Moby Dick itself. My dad will tell you that Moby Dick is actually the first book he ever read cover to cover. And to this day, I still feel bad for him, because that is an awful book to read cover to cover. What do you know about Herman Melville, the guy that wrote it?
Herman Melville. I don't know a lot.
You don't know? Okay. How about you, Eddie? You know anything about Herman Melville?
No, I don't read.
To give you an idea where the story is going, he was born in 1819. He dies in 1891. Now, mind you, this is the guy that wrote Moby Dick. Is he in trouble?
Yeah.
Yeah, broke the foot.
Should I just get the?
What's that?
Should I just get the
What-
S500?
Do we have the 500 set up?
I don't know.
Want to throw him on the Luminaire? Is it?
I think it's me, not the machine.
No, it's probably the machine. Anyway, Eddie's gonna go find you another machine. I don't. The 500 is probably in the box, Eddie.
Alright.
If you want to grab, what's that?
I'm just gonna grab this.
That one's all set and ready to go. Let's do that. We'll put him on. But yeah, because it's blue and it matches his coat, and it'll look good. It'll be way more styling, and we'll have to fight with it. So anyway, Melville, born in 1819, died in 1891. Little known fact. Keep in mind, this is the man that wrote Moby Dick. Okay. All of the books that he wrote were out of publication. They were no longer being printed by 1876.
They weren't very popular when he was alive?
Nope. He was, it's an interesting to read, all his stuff. So yeah, he started out as, his father died when he was 12. Father was a merchant, so not super well-to-do, but well-to-do enough. But he died, so his uncle kind of took him under his wing. And his uncle kind of provided for the family and made sure that things were good to go. And what happened is, so his father dies, his uncle kind of takes over for him, and then his grandfather, I think it was his grandfather, dies, and so there was supposed to be this inheritance. Well, lo and behold, his dad, before he died, borrowed an awful lot of money against that inheritance, so there wasn't a whole lot to choose from. There wasn't a whole lot left over for Herman and the family. And so he went to work with his uncle, who owned a trading company, a fur trading company, and went to work as a clerk at the age of 14 at a bank. So that's kind of his early life. So he's kind of, I don't want to say he's an aristocrat, but he comes from, higher class. He's not a bum by any means. And this is important later. Yes, I know. All right.
What's the time period?
Time period. So he's born in 1819. He works as a clerk for his father. He works at the bank that his uncle's business works for. So his uncle got him a job as a clerk at the bank in when he was 14. So it'd be like 18. Do the math for me. I don't know. 1832 maybe. Is that
I
right?
don't remember the first number.
1819 is when he's born. Yeah. So I think it's like around 1832.
1833.
Yeah. Yeah, 1832. Was 1832? Yeah. Anyway, so he's working as a clerk. Long story short, he had a lot of jobs. He started working at the age of like 14, and he was everything from he worked a clerk at a bank. He tended his uncle's fur trade shop. He was a teacher/tutor. He also went to school. He was also a farmer. So he did a little bit of everything. And then his uncle's business took a little bit of a hit. Things weren't looking good. And he decided, so his uncle's like, I can't afford to pay you anymore. But guess what? Come down to the harbor. They're hiring, and you can probably get on as a sailor. Work as a what they call a boy back in the day. That was a green, a super green, a new hire basically on a ship. So he's like, okay, we'll take that job. So you put some thought in me. I'm just throwing mine together.
Oh, okay.
But that's fine.
Yeah.
Yours are probably going to come out better because we'll be able to compare as we're going.
We'll see.
All right. So he gets a job. You live down in Boston. Have you ever been down to or New York? Have you been down to to the ship front and
Yeah. Yeah.
and hang out to the harbor and
Yeah.
see all the sailors?
Yeah, it's
Is it like in the old timey days where the steam trunks come off? Could you imagine back in the day, hey, I need a job. Let's just go down to the harbor and catch the next boat to England.
I think too in the States in the early part of the 20th century, you lost your job, you go out and look for another one that day, and you probably
Yeah.
find one in the garment district, right?
Yeah.
You get fired here and then walk across
Across
the street.
see if they're hired. But yeah, basically that's what happened with Herman. His uncle's business was going downhill, so his uncle said, head down to the harbor. They'll probably hook you up with a job because they're always hiring. You're capable enough to be a sailor. So he gets on his first trip. He is actually merchant vessel because Herman Melville was known for what? His whale story, right?
Yeah.
First trip's actually just a merchant vessel from New York to Liverpool. Does that, comes home, and he's like, yeah, that wasn't that cool, and he decides that he's going to try and get a job as a tutor again. And he was tutored for 6 months, or a semester. And guess what happened to his tutoring job?
He got fired?
No.
He got really good.
Not really sure. All I know is they didn't pay him, and so he was like, "Peace out. You're not paying me. I'm not sticking around." So he quit. He quits his job and he kind of floats around for another year or so, from different stuff. Heads out to Ohio, see what his uncle's up to. Long story short, him and his buddy. And also around this time, you're getting some really cool stories. What was it? 2 years before the Mast, a book that just came out. Also around this time is the story of Mocha Dick. Why are you laughing, Eddie? I'm wondering what happens if you Google search Mocha Dick.
I don't think I'm gonna do that.
I wouldn't either. I would make sure your safe search is on because that just sounds like it would end badly. But that was the story going around the time. Is the story called Mocha Dick, and do you know what Mocha Dick's about?
Is it about a whale or is it about?
Is it about what, Eddie?
No, well, come on. So I don't know how far we're gonna get on this today. Let's see.
I'm having fun. I'm getting
Yeah,
out of
okay,
it.
you're getting it. So
I think
Mocha
so.
Mocha Dick. So Mocha Dick is actually the story of a whale down by the southern South Africa not South Africa, South America. I want to say off the coast of Venezuela, by the Mocha Islands, hence the name Mocha Dick. A great albino whale. This thing was legendary. In fact, that they think that this may have inspired some of Moby Dick because the story of Mocha Dick came out, in 39. Was it 39?
This
Yeah,
is a
30.
true story. This is not a made up.
Yeah, this is a true story.
Yeah.
Of this whale. Like I said, it's a giant albino sperm whale off the coast of, like I said, South America. That they would get in a boat and go look for him.
Huh.
The Heart of the. Did you ever see that movie Heart of the Sea? The Heart of the Sea. With Hemsworth, Thor.
Okay.
When Thor becomes a sailor. Heart of the Sea. Anybody see that?
Oh, I know of it. I haven't seen it, but I
That is.
know of it.
They say it's based. I'll use the word loosely. Based on a true story.
Huh.
And what it's actually based on is a lot of the events depicted in it are certainly accurate because what was going on with a lot of those whaling vessels at the time. Mocha Dick was just like the most famous one, but whales were not happy to be hunted, and they were fairly intelligent. There's stories of Mocha Dick. They say it was actually a very genial whale, a very nice whale. If you were to sail down there, he would come alongside the boat and see how you were doing. Just kind of cruise in your wake and, kind of say hi and all that. But they said the minute that you threw a harpoon at him, all bets were off. And harpooners are actually scared of him. They would not want to go out on a harpoon boat to go after him because he was known to breach so hard that the entire body would come out of the water, and he would just use his tail and destroy the fluke
Yeah.
and destroy boats. Apparently this thing was legendary. And okay, this Mocha Dick deserves his own movie because you know how he died.
No.
So some whalers are down in the area and they kill a baby whale. And so apparently the mama whale, the cow whale, is in distress and making all sorts of noises. And Mocha Dick hears it, and he comes out of nowhere and starts just tearing stuff up. And they happen to get him, but they got him because he was apparently avenging the baby whale.
Wow.
But that's the story. So anyway, this is in the Knickerbocker about the same time, around 39, when not 39, yeah, 39. See, I have my notes this week, unlike last week. This came out 39, 40, 1839, 1840. So these are the stories that are circulating. And so Melville and his buddy, after reading, 2 years before the Mast and seeing that story in the Knickerbocker, like, let's go get on a whaling ship. It sounds like it'll be more fun than a merchant ship. And so that's what they do. They go jump on a whaling ship. And this is something I didn't realize. Do you know how long a whaling trip is?
A whaling trip?
Yeah, back in the day. If you jump on a whaling vessel and you're like, I'm going to go hunt some whales, what do you figure?
I don't know, but the way you're saying it's going to be a long time, but I don't know, maybe 2 months? More?
A couple years.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you would sign up on a ship and you're like, hey, let's go get some whales. And you're 2 years out.
Holy cow.
And actually, on his 2-year mark, he was actually they're off the coast of Tahiti somewhere, and him and his buddy are like, "Yeah, we've had enough of this," and they hang out on the island with the savages.
Yeah.
That is actually the basis of his first book, Taipei. Is his adventures with the savages in the South Pacific. And then after that, he gets picked up on another ship, and he's actually part of a mutiny and everything. I mean, this dude's life itself makes for a good story, which makes sense that his first 2 books are what put him on the map, Taipei, and the sequel, Uma, were about his adventures in the South Pacific on his whaling expeditions. So that's kind of his early life. So he gets back, he starts telling his sea stories, and everybody's like, well, maybe you should write a book. And so he did. Taipei, followed up, like I said, by the sequel Uma, and that puts him on the map. And so this is where it gets interesting. So he was actually kind of respected for those books. Those books, people actually read and enjoyed. Except, I'm going to read this quote, because this is why we have Moby Dick. Okay? Because he meets Hawthorne, because Hawthorne's, they're rubbing shoulders at this point. And the dude in Melville becomes enamored with Hawthorne. He thinks Hawthorne's just the man.
Yeah.
The bro. He wants to be like Hawthorne's bro.
Yeah.
And so he's like, and Hawthorne being Hawthorne, reads a couple of his books and kind of responds to a mutual friend after the mutual friend gives him a couple books. And he's met Melville, so he decides he's going to read his book because he liked Melville. And this is the response that Hawthorne gave of the 2 books, probably Melville's most popular books in his lifetime. This is what Hawthorne says. Okay. A rich book with depths here and there that compel a man to swim for his life. It is so good that one scarcely pardons the writer for not having brooded long over it so as to make it a great deal better.
Is that a compliment? I don't know.
I don't know. But that's what Hawthorne said about the first couple books that Melville wrote. And so I think he took that to mean is, yeah, they were decent stories, but they could have been better if you spent some time on it.
Right.
So Melville has a bromance, a bro crush on Hawthorne. And there's a whole nother side to that if you get into the Melville revival after. That's explored in some weird stuff too. Anyway, so he takes that to heart, and because he really likes Hawthorne, he decides. And by this time, Moby Dick's actually half written. He decides to go back and rewrite Moby Dick entirely. In fact, we don't have the early manuscripts for Moby Dick at all. Apparently, he went back and rewrote the whole thing and just said enough, And so that's why oh my God, look what I did. So I go and randomly put them together.
You put 2 together.
And look what my last 2 look like.
Well, that'll be what's unique about yours.
I'm not going to put them in. Because, what's that? Oh no. Well, we'll throw them in at the end. I know where we'll put them in. So that's the story. So that's why Moby Dick gets written, is because Hawthorne was kind of like I said, I don't know. How would you take that? As a compliment? Like Hawthorne said, yeah, your book was good, but...
Yeah, I think what he's trying to do as a mentor is say, I think you're doing good, but I still expect more out of you.
Okay, yeah, good point.
Yeah.
And so that's what he does. He writes Moby Dick. The Moby Dick we have today, strongly influenced by the idea that Hawthorne says, he should have done more. So that's we get Moby Dick.
Very interesting.
And now Moby Dick, well, somewhat critically acclaimed for its at the time, it was appreciated for what it was. Now you can imagine. See, I kind of think it's kind of like Clint Eastwood, right? Do you watch early Clint Eastwoods?
Yeah.
Like Fistful of Dollars.
Yeah.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do.
And then you compare that with some of his older work, like we'll say Bridges of Madison County.
Okay.
If you're the demographic that liked Eastwood for, say, The Unforgiven, and then you went and sat through like Bridges of Madison County,
Yeah.
how would you feel about that? I mean, especially the way the marketing goes. They would have marketed it as
A
oh,
Clint Eastwood film.
yeah, a
I
Clint
would've-
Eastwood film.
I would have called my wife and said, hey, I think you might like this movie. And then I would go, Go do something
Yeah,
else.
but can you imagine like the marketing on it? Like, oh, the lady, the Clinty, the man that brought you,
Right.
the man with no name, and Dirty Harry. Now with the bridges of Madison County, right? So I think that's kind of what happened with Melville. So you got all these people that loved his adventure novels and his great kind of docu-law, wait, what's the other? There's another quote from Hawthorne. This one's good too. Oh, what was it say? Oh, no, I didn't write it down. But basically, Melville, Hawthorne writes in another time as kind of an anonymous reviewer of his books. Basically, like, kind of good, but it's awfully dirty.
Huh.
When I say dirty, like, it was scandalous because, he's in the South Pacific where the women are bare-breasted. There's all sorts of kind of this, depiction of the savages apparently was not, was another part of it. And then this is Melville's other quote. I don't want to go down to posterity as the man who lived among the cannibals. So that's how his first couple books were marketed. I mean, that's what they were. So you go from that to Moby Dick, and you can kind of understand why a lot of people were kind of like, yeah, that's not what we signed up for. So Moby Dick was all right, but it wasn't super. It didn't have the mass appeal that his adventure novels did, his other novels. And then he followed that up. Oh gosh, what was it called? Pierre? The book after that he writes another book after that kind of seals his fate. It's like you could. Have you ever read any early Poe, Edgar Allan, or any of Edgar Allan Poe?
No, just, the popular,
Yeah.
Raven.
But you've read his stuff. It's kind of this weird, dark. You can
I'm
tell
familiar
that.
with the,
You
the
can,
cadence of it.
Yeah, and you can tell and if you read Poe, you can see he's kind of dark and maybe a little disturbed, right? Well, apparently that was some influence. I didn't research this in this, but that was the problem with Melville's follow-up to Moby Dick. Was he kind of went down that dark kind of weird, and he's all into like the occult and stuff from all his time at sea. If you actually look at his history, he gets into some weird stuff. So he gets into that in his book Pierre, which was followed up with the headline. What's a great headline for a book, Eddie? If you're like a New York Times, you're gonna read this book that's a little bit crazy. Give me a headline about a crazy book.
Crazy book, exciting stuff.
Yeah, no, they just said I believe the headline was Melville is crazy. He may have lost his mind, I think was the subtitle of the heading. So basically after that book everybody thought that he had lost his mind and that he was crazy. In fact, some people actually didn't realize that he was still alive when he died. They thought he was had gone to the loony bin long before that. I have not read, I think it's Pierre. I'm now curious to read it because I mean if that's the review of it, it's like it's got to be interesting, right?
Right.
So anyway, that's kind of the book that killed his career as an author, because after that this guy's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and he put a few other books out, some stuff about the Civil War. He wrote. He tried to be a poet for a while, and then he was a lecturer. He lectured for a while, but.
Want to see these?
Oh, we do.
Oh, those are really.
Yes. All right. They just came in. Okay. You all got a special treat because this just came in, and I've been excited about this. So guess what his career was? So Melville's last job. He actually retired. He put 19 years in and retired. What do you think it was? Is that nice? So this is the Tula Pink Everglow.
An elephant.
Yeah,
Looks great.
yeah, she did a fantastic job on this. So Melville actually retired from the New York City Customs Department as a customs inspector.
Ah.
He put it 19 years and retired from it. Rumor is he had a reputation for being honest in a knowingly corrupt system, and the rumor is that he only kept his job because the guy in charge actually was a fan of his work and they didn't want to fire him. Which is kind of funny if that's how you keep the honest guy employed because we like the books he wrote. But like I said, by 1876, his books are out of print. Believe it or not. So in his lifetime, he was no longer in print.
These look great.
Yeah, they did a great job. Here's the one, the giraffe. These will be available on our website here shortly. There's been an issue with our network, so it probably might not be till tomorrow that you'll be able to get these. And I'm not even sure what we're going to charge for them. I'm going to look at the invoice, but
Here's the hippo.
the hippo.
Yeah,
See, the hippo I was worried about when I saw this on paper,
I love it.
because you got this little teal here, but then the green on the bird's a little different. And so I saw it on paper. I don't know, but somehow it works on fabric. I like it. And then this is the hippo I really liked. I have no idea. Do you ever see Madagascar? I like 'em chunky. I like 'em round. You know what I'm talking about? Have you seen that, Michael?
I haven't, but you're doing it well. That makes me want to see it.
It's the hippo when he serenades the hippo in the swamp about how he likes her chunkiness and her. I like 'em chunky. I like 'em round. It's anyway.
I forgot how to get my foot down.
See this one here. We'll put it down.
I must have hit something.
No, there we go.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah. So where are we at? So yeah, Melville retires from the customs and then he dies in 1891. That's the story of Herman Melville. But we're talking about Moby Dick, right? Because the question is, if it's out of print by the time he dies, why is it that my dad in high school was assigned it as a reading assignment, and it's one of the first book he ever read cover to cover, because it was assigned to him by an angry nun, by most accounts.
There must have been some notable critic or critics that said at some point in time, hey, we all have to pay attention to this book. Somebody must have put him back on the map.
Yes.
Who was that?
Well, it turns out that there was a lot of stuff kind of going on around 1919, the 100-year anniversary of his birth. And there was a guy, I didn't write the name down, there was this whole movement that they had realized that there was no, this is the academics now, there's no consistency in the American story. What are we really saying with our American literature? Right? So, I mean, that's because you got to figure 1919, the American experience has been going on for a while, but, at the end of the day, let's be honest, we're just the angry child of Europe, We got mad at USA is like that angry middle child. We're like angry at mom and dad, so we rebel, throw their tea in the bathtub. And next thing you know, we get kicked out at the age of 16, and that's America. So there's kind of this thing going on at that point about, what is America? What does it mean? And blah, 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 which, okay, I get it. And for some reason, and what had been happening at this point, too, is, what's the guy? Carl Van Doren, who happens to be a scholar. He was teaching at one of, the big universities. He had been assigning... And see, here's another thing that I found interesting. A year after Melville's death, all of his stuff goes back into publication.
A year after?
Yep.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah, and I'm wondering because the rights were turned over, the daughter turned the rights over to somebody in England, and so I'm wondering if there's something going on there too. So anyway, by 1919, as far back as 1915, it's hypothesized that this Van Buren guy was actually I guess is evidence of it. He was assigning this in one of his literature classes, kind of like, hey, check out this crazy novel of, Americana, psychological adventure kind of, that Moby Dick was like this weird kind of book noir to experience like this. And so that was being assigned at that point. And so when there's this big thing in, like I said, the 1920s, what is America all about? They went back and apparently... At this point, Melville, to some degree, is in the zeitgeist with all these literary people because he is a reading assignment for a certain segment. They're like, Melville captures the, I don't say the working class, but like the whole idea of that sea genre. Like the mariner, the adventurer type bit. that's, I think, why he ended up being so famous, is they were trying to find somebody to represent that aspect of the American experience.
Uh-huh.
And so they decided that Melville was the man.
Okay.
And to be fair, I mean, who did they have to choose from?
Okay.
I mean, who else was doing like crazy adventure novels and all that? But see, I think there's also a French connection there that I couldn't find, but I'd heard about it once. Because he was in Tahiti, which was a French colony with the savages and stuff, and so I think there was also something had to do with the revival of the fact that, yeah, there's a whole bunch of things going. so that's why he was brought back, to kind of fill that gap in American the American library for the working class, for the sailor type, because he captures the life of the sailor, but he's still highbrow enough that the college professors can recommend him. Which I don't think they would have done if he just had Taipei and Umo, because those I don't think were really highbrow. Those were kind of like Louis L'Amour of the day, just like these adventure novels. Not the higher end stuff. Okay, you got them all done.
I did.
So now what we want to do is see that you have the magic machine.
Okay.
You don't need to cut that. Watch this.
Oh.
You just hit that button there, and it cuts it for you.
Very nice.
So now we just want to cut them all apart.
Every two or every?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then take those two and then put them right sides together and send them back through.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I'll go back to you. So I'm
Okay.
learning now how sewing straight is going to be important. I'm going to.
Yeah, well, see, that's the beauty of this project is I don't think it's really going to matter how straight you sew. There's going to be a lot of kind of room to fudge this as we go.
Okay.
I think. I really don't know. This is having my doubts about this right now. But anyway, is there any comments? Okay.
Gene's son's favorite book is Moby Dick, and he can quote passages for every occasion.
Oh my
And he's
gosh.
a PhD in English literature. Okay. Yeah, you see, now here's the thing. So that's the story of Herman Melville. And like I said, there was the revival on the 100th anniversary of his birth in 1919. And then, so there's what they call the Melville Revival from 1920 to like the 50s. And that's, if you want to fall down a bizarro rabbit hole, it's almost like they've turned Melville, his books, into like scripture.
Huh.
It's very interesting how they find all these weird, I don't say weird, it's, how as humans, well, not as humans, but as people sometimes, we like find a meaning where we want to, which isn't a bad thing, I don't think. I think that accounts for a lot of,
I think that's what artists want you to do.
yeah. But I don't know that he put all of that in there on purpose. I think, people are looking for it. But I also think that's kind of like the magic of like the Bible. Like, did they really put that in there on purpose, or it's just we put it there because we were looking for something, so we're finding it.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is interesting about Melville's work, is there's a lot there to read into. Like, he obviously made Moby Dick, was supposed to be all symbolic. I mean, there's an entire chapter on the whiteness of the whale, for crying out loud. I think there's even a chapter on the blackness of Queequeg. I think I'm saying his name right. I don't know. Yeah, set it aside. We'll deal with it.
Okay.
So what's interesting, and I think you could really do this with any author that has a body of work that's at least readable, is you could probably. I mean, there's arguments to be made that it's done with. Okay, this brings me to like L. Ron Hubbard. Have you ever read L. Ron Hubbard?
No.
Like I was always a big sci-fi guy.
Yeah, he was pretty big sci-fi guy,
he
right?
writes good sci-fi.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
So I first discovered him as a science fiction author when I was a child, before I had any idea about Dianetics and Scientology and all that craziness.
Yeah.
Which is funny to me because I am sure, in fact, as somebody that's read his stuff, I've had conversations with some of these people. They view a lot of his sci-fi work as scripture. Like there's things to be gleaned from all of his literary works because he was, a prophet or whatever, the Thetans or whatnot. And he writes interesting sci-fi, but I don't know that that I would think it's actually scripture. I thought Heinlein does a better job of, that sort of thing. But anyway. That's what's happened with Melville, is, there's this revival and now all this stuff. So there is crazy stuff out there about like I said, so I'm falling down the rabbit hole, and there's like this. There's a whole subgenre of Melville, of the Melville studies that is all about not gender studies, because they really talk about the relationship of Melville with Hawthorne, and it's just bizarre. because if you read some of the stuff they write back and forth, it's hard to. It's like, well, they were both writers, so I would expect some some language is very how shall we say, colorful. So it's not like it's bad, but they read so much into the subtext. It's like, oh man, you people should probably find. that's neither here nor there. It's like, have you ever read the original intro to Huckleberry Finn?
No.
Yeah,
Is it by Twain or is it?
but
by
it's
someone-
written by Twain, and I remember I read it once because I had to write a report about Huckleberry Finn when I was a sophomore or junior. Mrs. Kirschbaum's class in high school. Anybody watching that knows her? Great lady, fantastic teacher. I think it was Kirschbaum. And I had to write a report about Huckleberry Finn and what it means and the symbology and Mark Twain. But you know what he says? No, what Twain writes in the very beginning of that book.
Don't believe anything that I have in here.
Yep. This is a book. It is a story. There's nothing of value I have to say.
Yeah.
Do not read into it. There is no symbolism. And I quoted that.
Yeah.
And so what was supposed to be like a 3-page paper was a paragraph long. I said, because I cannot, I wrote a really eloquent paragraph, if I remember correctly, about how I could not complete the assignment as it would be against the author's wishes to interpret his work as it was not meant to be interpreted. And then I was told, well, that's satire and hyperbole, and she used a lot of big words for he was joking, and I knew that he was, but it got me out of doing a lot of writing. Anyway, so where was I going with that, Eddie? How many people do we have on the stream? I'm starting to think like we're turning into like those weird people that play video games that sit around and talk, and for some reason people watch them. Okay, am I missing comments?
No, I don't
No?
think
Okay.
so. I think people are
Enjoying it?
I'm redoing this because I didn't do the.
Oh, you did it, yeah.
I did a right side and a wrong side.
Oh, I could have gotten that. I can rip that real quick for you. See, there's all sorts of. Of course, this isn't the best ripper for this. Do you want to focus in on this, Eddie, so that people can see the?
Oh,
So you just kind of pull it open and use your blade to cut that thread, and it just kind of pulls it.
very nice.
And it's very quick if you just got straight seams. And like I said, the regular straight blade Opals work a whole lot better for this,
Okay, thank you.
and a nice sharp blade. So where were we at? Okay, so Melville, we were talking about the Melville revival. It gets, like I said, it gets really interesting because the other thing that is fascinating, another reason that people really got into Melville, is the fact that he was the son of a merchant, comes from a fairly wealthy family, and so now keep in mind around 1919 you have a lot of the strikes and the protests and the Pinkerton, all that crazy stuff that leads us. Anyway, we're not going to get into politics, but anyway, leads to interesting stuff. So what's happening now? What happened? A lot of part of the Melville revival also has to do with the fact that you have this. And this was in the literature as I'm studying this. Melville was the epitome of white privilege. To then spend time among the underclass on the islands in Tahiti gives us a unique insight into Western's relationship with colonized South Pacific, something like that. Anyway, fancy way of saying that, because he was a rich white dude, and then he went on these adventures to like a third world country, and then he wrote about it. We have a very interesting insight into how they felt about things back in the day, which I think I think there's a valid point to that, to get an interesting kind of insight. But that was also one of the critiques that was made, that Hawthorne originally made of his first books, was the fact that I guess it's important to mention now that Melville grew up Calvinist. His mother was very religious, and she grew up Calvinist. And so he grew up. So he had a very religious upbringing, but by most accounts, by the time he got to is that his account of the primitives on the island. Primitives, am I allowed to say that? I can never tell anymore. One of the critiques was the fact that his book really did away with a lot of the social mores at the time, and he didn't judge them for what they were doing. He didn't come in with the holier than thou, oh, you're being, wrong. It was just kind of like, this is how it is, and this is the adventures we had. And that without imposing any morality onto it, there was a fear that he may have been romanticizing a hedonistic lifestyle. That was one of the critiques of his early books. But then they're also using that now in Melville studies to say that this is now gives us an accurate portrayal of the relationship with mid-century, But it was a very interesting. Oh, you're waiting for me on this?
Yeah, so I just have these all
Yep.
sewn together.
Sew them together, and then you take the twos and sew them together again. Eventually, what we want is just one giant long piece.
So how do I get these together?
So just line those up, right sides together, and run a seam.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So far, so good?
Yeah.
All right, so that's the story of Melville, and like I said, the Melville revival is very interesting when you start getting into all that. But I think there's also a debate whether the Taipei and Uma, the two books that put them on the map, if those were more embellishments or actual experiences. By most accounts, he was like a storyteller. And then, like I said, the Heart of the Sea, the movie, is actually supposedly based on the true story of all that. But that movie is actually based on what was going on in whaling, which I thought was fat. This is a way more interesting side note that I thought than the whole Melville revival was the whole thing with whale hunting at that point. Because they just whales are crazy. You start reading the stories.
Do I keep these together like this too?
Yeah.
Just like I
Yeah,
did?
do the same way.
Okay.
So could you imagine getting on a boat with a spear, rowing out, and then they're going to throw that spear at a giant whale? A whale that is bigger than your boat that you're throwing a spear at the whale from.
No.
I think of that. Who's the guy that thought that up? Like, what dude was like, hey, there's a whale out there. Let me get a sharp stick and go poke it.
Somebody better invent a gun.
Yeah, but
Or we're gonna get.
yeah, but I
killed
mean that's
here.
how they did it back in the day. They would just like row out there and like on these boats. Like I said, the whales were bigger than the boats. Like I said, Mocha Dick, what the Moby Dick is probably based on, he used to smash harpoon boats. Like he killed. He would smash harpoon boats and wreak havoc on smaller vessels.
I gotta look him up.
But then it got me thinking, because he's not the only great white whale that was out there. Apparently albino whales are not unusual. Because Mocha Dick was a white whale too. That was what was also interesting about him, which made it easier for like people to identify him, because I mean you have a giant white whale, kind of sets him apart from everybody else.
So what happens in Moby Dick?
In Moby Dick,
Yeah.
there is a captain that is obsessed with, well, Ahab, right? That's the captain's name, right?
Yeah, Captain Ahab.
He's got a peg leg, if I remember properly.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah, he does.
Yeah, and
And a
that
patch over one eye.
yeah, but the leg is a result of his was actually from a run-in with Moby Dick,
That's right.
because Moby Dick smashed the boat he was on, and he lost his leg in the wreck. And so he becomes, so the whole idea behind, see, that's what makes Moby Dick interesting is, and I think that's why it kind of failed for Melville, is if you, like I said, if you had read Taipei and Uma, which are just, straight up adventure novels, like, it's like a CW show. You ever watch a CW?
No, but I know of it.
Like Vampire Diaries?
Yeah,
CW.
Yeah.
It's entertaining,
Uh-huh.
but it's not super sophisticated usually. You ever watch like an A24 film?
A24, I don't know what that is.
The Green Knight. Did you watch that?
The Green Knight.
The Norseman.
I like that kind of stuff, though.
Yeah, you should watch it. A24 is more like an art house thing. So if you go from making CW shows, the Vampire Diaries, to the Green Knight or the Norseman, that's like what's that?
You got it in.
He would, oh, he's. So that's like I said. I really think that's what one of the big problems with Moby Dick was just it was just a different because it's Moby Dick is about the psychological. Is more about the psychology and the craziness of the captain in his psychotic pursuit of the whale.
Yeah.
Because the whole story is told from Ishmael's point of view, who was just a sailor on the boat. He's the only survivor of the whole thing. So that kind of sets the story up because, you know, the story is being told by the only survivor, and the survivor because the captain was obsessed with a whale that ends up destroying everything. So that's what Moby Dick's about. Does that answer your question, Eddie?
Yeah.
Very, very common theme when you start looking at different stories in the world, you know, the idea of obsession leading to destruction. All right, so what I'm going to do now is if you've ever made a 1600 quilt, Michael's a little behind me, but, you know, he'll catch up. I've got all of these sewn together in a giant long line. Now, if I just fold it in half, all of my squares should line up. That's the theory, right? But I don't want my squares to line up. Wait, they're not going to line up. You know why? Yes, they will line up. But I don't want my squares to line up because I want to offset them because I'm trying to do something interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and this is, you would also do this on a 1600 quilt. You would take the last strip and cut it in half. So I'm just going
What
to
if
take.
you added the?
I already added it.
Oh, okay.
The squares that were, I already worked those in. See, I was like doing it ninja style. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the last square and I'm going to cut it in half. And what this is going to do is offset everything. Now you would do this on a 1600 quilt as well. And what this is going to do for me is offset my squares on every row. Or at least that's the theory. So far so good? Making sense? So since I finished everything I had on Melville. I don't know how exciting that was for people, but it was interesting, I hope. What's some of your favorite classical books? See, one of my favorites, Joseph Conrad, was always one of my favorites, and that's why I thought I would like Melville. But honestly, I think Conrad makes a way better adventure story than Melville. Lord Jim. Did you ever read Lord Jim?
No.
It's a fantastic story.
Yeah?
Everybody should read that story. See, you know, notice as I line it up that that my seams here are that's halfway in between. That's because I cut that last one in half. And I can already see where I've got problems with the way. So but who cares? We're having fun, right? We're almost over time, aren't we, Eddie? Like and subscribe too, because one of the things too is we're like at 900. If we get 1,000 people, we're almost to the point where YouTube will pay us to do this, and then we can afford to get better cameras. That's like life goals right there. Yep, and then just take those and sew those together.
I think I got it. Now it's,
Yeah.
I'm a little dense, but I.
Yeah, no, you're doing good.
Dean says their son is a David Foster Wallace.
A David Foster Wallace
Yeah.
lecturer?
Yeah.
What did he write? That sounds familiar. See, this is where I show my ignorance. What's that? See, how do you make money? See, that's one of the things I find fascinating. So if you become like a literary scholar, right? And so your job then becomes to just
The broom of the system. Infinite jest.
So just like this, and then sew that along here.
Oh, yeah,
he
just
was
take-
born- he died in Claremont, California.
so we're gonna open those up
Yeah.
and then just do along there.
Oh, that's right. That's right. The same system.
Yep, same system.
Right
because-
sides together.
Yep. Yeah, I don't.
So much simpler.
So that's what makes I find fascinating about academic life. So now, how long have you been selling fabric?
37,
So is this something you just kind of like fell into, or just got,
36 years.
you just kind of fell into it, or you're just like, hey, I'm gonna go work?
Fell into it. Yeah. Fell into it.
Now, what was your background before you?
There was no background before. There was just, going out with my friends and trying to pick up girls and playing sports and,
And then
a young man. And then I
then
had to
you-
grow up and
and then
pay bills and I had to get out of the house.
so you applied for a job.
Find
And,
something to do.
applied for a job, and lo and behold, it was selling fabric. Now, have you enjoyed the journey?
Yeah, I mean, there were times when I wasn't. And then,
Okay, now how did you sell that
I
to your
was.
buddies when you were like, hey guys, I'm gonna go sell textiles? Was
they,
the
they didn't get it.
they
I'm
didn't-
not doing- oh, okay.
what's that?
It's making a little bing sound. Check your
because
reverb.
your threads broke.
Oh, this broke. Okay.
So I don't know. Are we at a good stopping spot? Should we keep going, or should we finish this?
How's your thing looking?
I've got to get one done. We can show it off next week. What's the consensus? Have I bored everybody? Will Michael be here next week to finish? I don't know. Are you? I don't know, you're
I
driving
think
up.
I'm in Vermont next week.
Oh, you see, you're driving up from Boston.
But this is an easy day trip for me.
Okay. Do you want to come back next
Sure.
week and finish it?
Let me just take a look at my schedule.
Maybe.
I do.
Maybe, and then we'll actually get into the life of Michael next week instead of the life of Herman.
Mine's much more boring.
I don't know. We can make it exciting. We can make stuff up. Because isn't that what you do? You like make up your own story and then you write it down and then you're suddenly famous.
I don't think I could get here in time.
All right.
But I would like to see how it comes out.
Okay.
Can you power through it now? Like
We
this
can power
one?
through it. Yeah, we can go. We can
I mean,
make it
I'll
through.
watch you do it, and I'll come
No, we
back.
can. We can get you go. Get you back up. I'm just,
Yeah?
I'm. Are we losing viewers, Eddie?
Oh, that's the thing.
I don't really. Part of me is like, oh,
I don't think so. I think
but we're not gaining any either. So I guess there's that.
The graph is kind of. It says it's all.
We're doing all right. Okay. The graph means something.
Yeah.
All right. We'll just keep going. We'll make this like a marathon session.
I love how simple this machine is. It helps me understand much
Ye-
better than how
Yeah.
this thing works.
Well, honestly, it's the same. The technology is the
Really?
same. Yeah.
I guess so.
The biggest difference. Oh, well, even these is not. It's just that's bigger, but the needle going up, bobbin, hook, catch, put the. Yeah.
Simple but ingenious, you know?
Yeah.
It was Hal, right?
Yeah, I think How came up with the first one. And then
Somebody helped perfect
he did the shuttle. He came up with like the first lock stitch machine, and then White's rotary. That's why whenever you see a rotary bobbin, that's always White's rotary because White's came up with the rotary bobbin. How pioneered the machine, but he was using a shuttle bobbin. And so that's why all the early machines are shuttles because most of them were based on kind of Howe's design.
That makes sense.
And early machines, if like the whole sewing machine wars, that's a whole nother like story.
Oh yeah,
It
kind
did-
of like with electricity too.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's crazy,
who
but
really
there was
invented it?
yeah, because there's a whole like the patent wars, who did what, but at the end of the day, Singer was paying royalties to Howe for the early machines, but Singer is a character and he's a way better salesman than Howe. What I got from when I studied, well, I don't know if studies is the right word, researched. What I found was that Howe was a grumpy old man.
He just wants to tinker in his basement all day.
Yeah, I think
and
he-
leave,
well,
and
he-
leave me alone. Leave me
Yeah, he was
alone.
like an
Working on
engineer. He's like,
something.
I want my money,
Yeah.
leave me alone. and you're gonna buy my machine, damn it. That's
Yeah.
kind of the impression I got from Hal. And he had a son. Like that's why there's actually two. There's the Howe company and the Howe Machine Company, and somehow there was like a falling out, and one is owned by the son-in-law, and one's actually Howe. But Singer was a character. That dude was like a carny. He had like 3 wives. The dude was nuts. He was like a showman. Like, we credit him with like inventing the sewing machine. He just knew how to sell the thing.
Okay.
But he might have been he was a little bit of a tinkerer. He was like one of those weird Renaissance men.
Yeah.
Like I said, carny con man. Right at the edge of the Industrial Revolution. I was going to say carny con man, kind of like Elon Musk, but I know that would make a lot of Musk fans upset.
Well, if they could have worked together, it sounds like they each had their own strengths and weaknesses, and they probably would have been a good team.
There was actually at one point they all did get together. There was a whole
Yeah.
the sewing machine conglomerate. Like all the machine manufacturers got together trying to agree on who owned what patents and pay royalties, make sure everything. But it was so cutthroat. The old school way of industrial. It was all about making a buck, not about. Okay. Should we philosophize for a little bit? Now that we have nothing else to. Well, no. Here's a thought for you, okay? Because a lot of Yes, they're going fine. Because if you look at the early history, like the Industrial Revolution, the robber barons. I mean, these dudes were all out making a buck. Like it was all about let's make a profit, right? And so then you had to have the unions come in and make them be nice to people and that sort of thing, right? But I don't know that is the same principle as what guides a lot of business today. Like most small businesses, yeah, they want to pay the bills, but they also recognize their responsibility to the community, the people they serve. So this idea that evil capitalist, I don't think holds as much water on the more local level. Now, it's not to say, Volkswagen with Dieselgate kind of did show that, global corporations might not have that same local responsibility that a local business would have. But I don't think the trope of, money at all costs is necessarily true. If it ever was, but in today, even less so. Which then makes the whole argument about this whole... I've been reading Marx lately, so I find his stuff fascinating. And he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but his stuff is fun to read. So all the tropes that he uses in his writings, I don't know if they have any merit or any validity. Because it's all based on this idea that, capitalists and people that make money are only concerned about making money and not about the social responsibility that they have towards their community and others. Right? Because, like myself, as an example.
Feature.
What's that?
It's a nice feature
Yeah,
to
see?
have that cup.
See, that's the difference between that's the difference 100 years of development makes in a sewing machine.
Here's some of my rows.
See, you're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, your rows are way better. You put more thought into the separation of your rows. See, I just kind of threw mine. All right, so what I did is I took that giant piece and folded it in half, and so this is what we have now. So far, so good. Okay. So now the question is, see, like I said, not having done this before, having done this with a jelly roll and not with this, I don't know if my offset's gonna. Oh, my offset does hold once you fold it in half. You only have to cut that once. So far so good. The concept works even for charm packs, but my concern is that it's gonna be awfully tiny.
The finished stroke's gonna be tiny?
Yeah,
It's okay, babies are small.
yeah, this is true.
So I'm gonna keep going, putting the right sides together.
Yep,
and
right
so on.
side, yep. You keep going until you have a giant long row. And then you take the giant long row, fold it in half, and go.
Okay.
Any comments, Eddie? Anybody we need to respond to?
Not really.
Okay, well, I have an idea for a new show, Eddie. Considering our target demographic. you and your boys from the gym, you hang out here with your shirts off and sew.
I don't think any of us look good without our shirts off.
Well, we could, we could go through and we could use one of those new AI filters and just drill. Well, we could do that with me. I could sew without a shirt on with an AI filter, and I could look like a Greek god, as it were. You good?
I think so.
I heard some mumbling over there.
I need to get this over more, but I feel like I'm stuck. Oh, it did cut it. All right.
Yeah, but yeah,
Oh, that's
it was jammed a little bit.
Just, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. Now that will happen. That you. No, that happens on that machine because it doesn't have a straight stitch plate in it. Because it can do zigzags, so it's got a bigger hole that will sometimes suck your
Oh,
fabric
that
down.
makes sense.
Well, you would never run into that on this machine because this machine only sews in a straight line, no zigzags, no. And if you were doing this at home and you're watching us do this, the proper thing would have been to iron this at some point, press out the seams. I just realized I haven't done any sort of pressing at all on this yet, but you can start to see the concept come together because we just got those last two sewn together. And all we're going to do now is cut the fold off. And here's what we got so far. I'm thinking I should stop here.
I think I broke it again, too.
Because the problem is if I sew this in half again, that's what it's going to give me for a quilt. And that's going to be super tiny. Whereas if I stop here and we get Michael's half of it,
Yeah. Then we can
it'll be the
put it
perfect
together.
size. But you can see the concept now.
It's kind of fun.
It's just kind of a random, and it's offset just enough. We'll do a top down so people can see it. So what we're gonna do, I don't think we'll finish today, but you can see how it's gonna come out now.
Yeah.
Is we'll do the same thing with these squares here, and then we'll put the two halves together, and it'll be a bigger quilt. Because the problem is if we continue this, it's gonna be really tiny. Because the next time we go through, it's gonna be that wide by that long, and that's gonna be really, really small. So I bet if you were to do this with a layer cake, is how I would probably do this. You would get better results. The thing that I would worry about, if you've stuck with this long, I appreciate it because I can't imagine that you haven't dozed off. The other thing that I would worry about doing this again with a layer cake is now we're doing two halves, so we'll put the two halves together. But the thing about a strip dimension is as you keep going and going, the problem I'm going to have now is if I fold this in half and sew it, that's what it'll look like. But then I'll cut my, I cut the seam off and then it folds out, my dimension is going to be kind of weird. So I'm thinking if you were going to do this with a layer cake, you might have to do it in two separate halves so that you get the dimensions halfway right and then sew the halves together so that you come out with a better dimension. Or you could just keep going and then trim it up to be to the golden ratio. You know about the golden ratio, right, Eddie?
I think you talked about it.
Do you know about the golden ratio, Mike? Okay, anybody that's still with us that hasn't fallen asleep yet, golden ratio. Never heard of this?
I've heard of it. Is it like 680?
I don't know what it is off the top of my head. But you know what it is, though? Do you understand the concept of it?
It's like the most appealing rectangle.
Yes, because it's the ratio of the sides to each other. So a square is not as appealing as a rectangle in the golden ratio. 60 by 80 is not quite the golden ratio, but it's fairly close. That's why I like a 60 by 80 quilt. But if you look at it, if you divide the top by the side, or the side by the top, you get a ratio of those two numbers together. And if that ratio is the perfect rectangle, it is the most appealing rectangle to the human eye. That's it's actually more appealing than squares, I think. Personally. That's why you see a lot of
I don't think I'd want a square quilt.
yeah, and that's why a lot of that's why a lot of rectangular quilts tend to be close to the golden ratio. That's why like dorm quilts. Have you ever seen dorm quilts? What they call dorm quilts. They're basically super long twin quilts because dorm beds are a little bit longer but narrower. That's why a long narrow quilt does not look as good as a properly sized rectangular quilt because of the golden ratio. It's all about the aesthetics of it. So I don't know that.
1.618.
Yeah, see, we
I
have.
wonder if that's true in nature somewhere too.
That's what I'm wondering. Yeah, it's got, like I said, it's not the fact that there's an actual number. Like, see, like Gene, yeah, 1.6180. I'd have to do. Maybe we'll do this next week. But I'm trying to figure. I don't remember where it came from. I know it's got something to do with geometry because the Greeks and their geometry. Did you know that? You know what's weird? Our geometry comes from Greece, right? Where do our numbers come from?
Roman numerals.
No, well, Roman numerals are the ones, the V's and the. Could you,
Where our numbers come
yeah,
from?
our actual numbers.
I don't know.
Our numbers are actually Arabic.
Oh, that's right. The Arabic.
Geometry is Greek. So my question is, how is Euclid and the gang doing geometry with Roman numerals? Like pi is like 3.14 or whatever. How is that? That's why you get the pi number, right? How are they doing like math? That like bothers me sometimes. Because geometry comes from the Greeks.
Yeah.
We know this. It's
How do they have it written down anywhere?
I don't know. These are things. This is why I love the internet. At some point, I'm gonna like fall down this rabbit hole and discover how this worked. And like the Romans. Okay, I did learn this though, because the Roman numerals, the 1, the V, the 10. Do you know the whole reason why Romans even had numbers? Was for the army. It is all about the army. Like a 1 is a single soldier, a V is a certain formation, and that's like a C is 100. That's a centurion is 100. Like everything about Roman numerals is about
The military.
the military and how it was so they could keep track of the military. Had nothing to do with anything else. We want to make sure that we can properly account for our military.
Right. I think that's why men started getting short haircuts too, because in war they realized their hair was being pulled.
Yep.
So the generals were like, everybody cut your hair,
Yep.
and then that became a look for guys. You just have short hair now.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. The influence of Roman on culture just in general is crazy. But I think that's why we ended up with Arabic numbers, is because all the trade was happening, and they had a much better system than we did. But then we were base 10, which makes sense. Oh, do you know this theory about the base 12? Have you ever seen this? This is fascinating. I'm totally sidetracked right now, but hey, why not? So
Why we do 12 inches instead of 10 inches.
yeah, well, we do 12 because of base 12, which is you got 12 hours in a day, 12 hours in a, or 24 hours.
I know what you meant.
Yeah,
half
360 is actually 6 integrals of 120. Gross is 12 times 12. So at some point, we had a base 12 system instead of a base 10. And the theory is that we have 12 knuckles. That's how they would count. Let's see if I remember how they would do this. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, it's got.
It's 1, 2.
Oh yeah, that's right. And that's right. On one hand, yeah. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah. And that's how that's the theory that's
interesting.
that's why we actually start at 12, but somehow we ended up at 10, which makes more sense with 10
It
fingers.
does.
But what would the extra 2 numbers be? Because you would need 2 more numbers, 0 through 9, and then 2 more.
Maybe that's why it's 11 and 12 and not 1 teen and 2 teens.
1 teen. That I think that's probably some truth to that too. 1 teen and 2 teen. 11D1 and 11D2. Anyway, we are totally off topic, and we had a lot of fun today. I don't know how many people we bored to death, but I hope you all enjoyed it. Hopefully, we'll get Michael to come back again soon.
I had fun.
And,
I gotta,
join us.
I got to learn to get a good, better pace with my machine because I keep breaking my threads. So I got to work on my technique.
But it's after 30 years, it's not bad.
But it's
But
very fun.
like, subscribe, and all that stuff. And thanks for watching. Check out our website. We'll have the Everglow up here in the next couple days or so. So on, and be excellent to each other.